offline.
Are there any announcements? Any announcements, anyone?
Yes, my wife's track meet yesterday. I think she had 4 out of 5 events that qualified for state.
Wow.
Oh, very good. Excellent. Any other announcements? Well, Raw Rising is coming up. More information will be coming out on it, but it's going to be the 22nd, which is a Saturday. And just keep in the back of your mind, our Kemetic New Year we'll start doing some stuff here on the 2nd, but it'll end on the 8th.
Thank God.
So just let that just kind of in the back of your mind. Somewhere in there we'll have something in July related to Queen Mother Moore, celebration of Black women. And then Guard Me in August. That's our announcement. So last Perron, which was the second Sunday in this month, we had Nation Builders Kwame and ha2tim speaking on the spirit of Malcolm X, or the spirit of the hero, or the hero's journey. So I will now turn it over to Brother Kwame and Brother ha2tim.
You want me to go first, or you going first?
I'll just add in as
Oh, he gonna throw it on me.
you like to talk.
Do
what you like to do.
Well, you out went on stage yesterday. We got a young man that's coming up. Speaking of,
Yeah, that young man was good.
Go ahead. Yes, sir.
But that 2 weeks ago, we were introduced to the mathematical situation with Brother Malcolm. That's what Brother Kwame did. So that was really important. You know, the way I understand it, they took through a mathematical journey on his life and that. And then we went. So will any of that be discussed?
Yeah, the idea was Malcolm X and mathematics, circles within circles, and it treated areas of Malcolm's life where I saw circles, in a manner of speaking. One such occasion was where his mother had a vision of his father being killed, and she runs out to try to call his father back because he left the house being upset over a dinner, and she tried to call him back because she had the vision, and he continued on, and of course her vision coming true completed that circle. Another example was where there was a hunting incident where he was out hunting for rabbits. And one of the things he learned about rabbits from the elder white men he was hunting with was that when the dog jumps the rabbit will run a complete circle. So what'll happen is that the men will go and sit where the rabbit just left and wait there for the rabbit to complete its circle and then kill it. Well, Malcolm X, of course, saw fit to find an earlier part of the circle before it got back to its completion point. And so he was killing all the rabbits, and they just thought he was a better shot, not understanding that they were outsmarted, really. One of the lessons, of course, he took away from that, looking back on it as an adult, was whenever you're in the same game and somebody is having more success than you, then clearly they're doing something you're not. Let's see, where else? We went on to look at some of the circles as a... where did I want to go there? So when Malcolm left the Michigan area and went to live with his older sister Ella in Boston. She told him to take a walk around the Boston area to get to know it, because she was saying that a lot of people come from the South or different parts looking, getting help from family members and stuff. They're so busy looking for work, they never get a chance to learn the city. So, as he was taking a walk around Boston, he walked around the Harvard area, and and he thought, or he spoke, or when he was thinking back to that, he was saying that, never realizing that as he was walking that Harvard area, that in 16 years, he'd be giving a speech to the Harvard Law Forum. Then there was just where he started riding the rails. So that was also another way of getting to know the Boston area. So he rode those around, and let's see, let's get past that to when Malcolm was young. In his spare time, he, as a 8th grader, he was part of the debate team. His favorite subjects were English and history. And then, of course, as he's going through his initiation process and finds himself in prison, he starts actually going into those very same areas of English and history a lot deeper, and then going into debating as well a lot deeper. And of course, he completes the circle by coming out using all those ideas that he learned from English and history and debating, and using those same skills to undermine those who would otherwise try to undermine him, and him or the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. That's all I'll say for now.
Any questions, comments?
Well, I have one comment. I'm looking through my packet on Warrior Healer Builder, and one of the things that stood out to me was what was the thing of what did he call the orphan?
The what?
The orphan?
The
what is it? The what?
the orphan, the orphan here, the one that you say we need to look out for, where the concept,
the universal.
The universal orphan. That was the thing that I thought that I liked about what you had said. You hear so much about Malcolm, but you never learn that he had these sisters, brothers, that you learn about his dad and some of the issues on his mom, but you never learn that he was not a universal orphan. This man had family. He had family that supported him, family that helped him. So much, what Kessler was saying, they want to put people out there as if they operate in a vacuum, and we operate as a family.
we always have.
Yes, and our heroes do, but they don't want you to even think about, oh, he was all about himself. No, he wasn't. He had family that helped him. And I appreciated you, so I could stop looking through these papers.
Yeah, just to give a little more context. So, 14 days ago at our Perunk, I had used a lot more of his family involved in all the stories that I was telling about Malcolm. So you heard, about everyone from his oldest sister, Hilda, who served as a kind of second mother to him, to his, there really wasn't a lot of information, at least in the books, given on his youngest sibling, Yvonne, but his younger brother, Reginald, who was put out of the Nation of Islam, and he was actually the one who, quote unquote, tricked Malcolm into the Nation of Islam, or at least changing some of his, let me be specific. So he got Malcolm to give up the pig and to give up smoking by just telling him, well, Malcolm was in prison. He said, look, just give these up. And Malcolm thought it was a ruse, to make them think he was crazy so that he might have a way to get out of prison early. But yeah, so you're learning, or you hear about all these different individuals, and as Brother ha2tim goes into his hero's journey, I'll bring out perhaps some of the other ones that play a relevant role when necessary.
So now going to the universal orphan and the importance of this, we got to understand we are in a generational warfare. Our enemies understand that, and they wage war upon us in a generational fashion. It's like, we're going to destroy you right now. We're going to slowly deplete you. And one of the weapons that's used against us is one of the things that we was just discussing, that whole universal orphan piece. Because what that does is it puts an individual in an isolated position as if they created themselves. If we were to go by the narrative that we are given as a community about Malcolm X, even Martin Luther King, Marcus Garvey, they just popped up out of a void by themselves, self-made. But they never want us to really realize the process that they went through. Because one of the pieces that I tried to cover last week, is when we talk about Malcolm, it's almost impossible to talk about Malcolm in the way that we need. Because let's talk about what we need. The danger of the universal orphan is that it makes people feel as if they can't do that. So now we're waiting for another miracle child, like another Jesus to pop up and save us, another Malcolm that come out the void. See, because when you look at the whole story of Jesus was already made when he was born. It was like, boom, he was a child of God, boom, boom, boom. Then we skip. And at 30, he's changing the world. But we don't get access to the process that went into developing who he was. So that's isolated. So we're kind of used to that story because many of us have been socialized into believing in this universal orphan. And that is dangerous for us because we need the Tykeeses, we need the Zions, we need these young people to understand that all these individuals went through a process. Like, for example, we just heard about this Robert Smith who gave the money to the graduates of Morehouse, right? Universal orphan. Until he come out and he start telling you his story.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Mm-hmm. And you understand that I'm giving you money so that you can have fuel in your bus, and the connection to the bus and his speech and how him being bused for a couple of years helped change his life. So he wanted to give back to the community, and he told the story about his mother, and I don't think I heard too much about his father, but we understand that there was a foundation out of which he grew. And as a community, this is what we have to start making sure people understand, so that we can start looking at these individuals' whole journey. When me and Kwame was giving this, me and him have a conversation about this. We gonna keep it what we are. Kwame loved mathematics. I love myths and the hero's journey. So, of course, that's where we're going to cover it from. Now, speaking about Malcolm and the spirit of Malcolm went through several phases. And all of us are old enough to know that all of us, we go through certain seasons of our lives. Micro and major, right? So Malcolm had phases. Malcolm was first Malcolm Little. Then he became Detroit Red. Transformation, initiation. Where was initiation? In the streets. Now, those of you who had any involvement with the street or got family members that have involvement with the streets, you know for a fact that nobody go out and be like, yo, I'm Malcolm Little while I'm out on the street hustling. You got to have your name, and that's one of the key pieces. You got to have your handle. That's the new being that you become, because you see, like, for example, for years, when I received the name ha2tim, even up to this day, there's certain family members that don't know ha2tim. They know OJ. They know all the other names prior to that. They don't know ha2tim. Whole different person. Whole different way of dealing with the world. And in the streets, there's initiation. And the only thing that I'm saying is that we have to kind of formalize what it means to be a member of, whether we label ourselves the conscious community, whatever it is. What is the process that an individual comes through in order to be part of this? Some of it could be planned, some of it's just going to happen. But there's always a process. So there was a process for him going from Malcolm Little to Detroit Red. Then he had another initiation where he had to be reverted to Malcolm Little, number 66, whatever the number they gave him in that prison, because that whole jail time was an initiation or was a rites of passage. And basically the rites of passage deals with 4 major parts: the call, the separation, initiation, reintroduction. And whether we do it on purpose, it's going to happen. Or whether we want to do it or not, it happens for all of us. School, separation, initiation, introduction. Every day, but I interfere with my children. Every day, my children, really. Because listen, every day your child is separated from you. They are initiated into a whole nother idea about the world, and then they are reintroduced to you. And you can start seeing subtle changes in your children as they come home, because they start learning. Not only are they learning what's going on the board, they're learning the culture of the young people around them. So what we have to start doing is, like our ancestors, is we have to control that process. We have to start taking control. And what Malcolm did, or what was done for Malcolm, was that Malcolm was basically introduced to a rites of passage program. Nobody want to talk about the Nation of Islam for what it is, but all the Nation of Islam is a rites of passage program. And they bring them into the culture of the nation. They call it the nation, but it's basically the Nation of Islam. And when you really look at it, it's a little bit different than the Islam that a lot of us run into. It has been formed and shaped by our experiences right here in America. And what we have to understand is, if we are going to move from where we are to where we want to be, we got to start that process for our young people as well as our old. Now, this is what, for me, what started to become a problem with the white rites of passage movement when we had, I keep on saying, people do not even understand what we have or have had in Columbus. I have went nowhere in this country or this world and felt intimidated by somebody spitting something. And when I mean spitting, I mean because when you go to New York, some people make a living doing what we do. Their whole hustle is black consciousness, black culture, boom, boom, boom. And we can sit down in the room, and I shut them down. And all that stuff I got is from here. I have been nowhere where I could hear a drum and not have a reflection point and be like, damn, this is drum sound. When I went to Ghana, man, it was so irritating. I was like, I don't believe I'm in Ghana.
You didn't go to Kumasi?
I went to Kumasi too.
Yeah. They do the drum.
Yeah, but it wasn't. Yeah. I'm just saying. You got to understand, my roommate for years, and still my best friend, is Ayende West. Where I have literally witnessed this boy drum up lightning. This is actual experience. Witnessed it. So the process we have is random here. And I'm saying, as a community, we need to be able to pull it together so that we can produce the Malcolms, or that spirit of Malcolm, because something was put or something was awakened in him by the process that he went through.
That often reminds me of that, I think it was a quote by W.E.B. Du Bois, who said, it is better to build a child than to have to repair an adult, right?
And in a rites of passage, what happens is, like, what Malcolm was trained to be was to be useful to his nation.
That's right.
The main purpose of warriors, nation builders, and elders is to be useful, to be able to serve. Now, one of the things, because I had a conversation with my son this morning, because after the festival, after we got everything cleaned up, we lined up all of our initiates and we gave them a little bit of money. You know what I'm saying? This is what you earn for your work. And we told all those that made it across the process, because like all those that did their umblature and have been in for a certain amount of years, they don't get nothing. So I was speaking to Cleve right before my show this morning. He said something disturbing to me that I have to clear up with him and the other brothers. I said, Cleve, you didn't get paid last night with everybody else. He said, yeah, I know. I said, you know why? He said, yes, because I'm of a higher rank. I'm at the brother level, and my work to the community is not valued.
No.
I said, oh, no. You picking up the wrong message. You're picking up the wrong message. At the level you are supposed to be making it possible for other people to be taken care of that might not be at the level where you are. You don't understand that. And a lot of our young people don't understand that as we start moving through the ranks, regardless of whether they are actual ranks or whether they are just certain ranks, is a certain part of leadership means that you have to be able to service those that are around you and that are responsible to you. And this is what we have to instill in our young people, because they honestly believe that if they're not getting the bag, that their work is not valued. I'm sitting up here like, damn, you in my house. Ooh, I mean, you ain't never seen me bring home no big amount of money from what we do, and you think it's not valuable? You know, but so if my son is thinking that, how many of the other young people that I sent home, you know what I'm saying, that it was 3 of them. I mean, you know, because they was like, we ain't getting paid. I said, no, y'all ain't getting paid. You see Devin get paid. You see Shamar get paid. Y'all approaching our level now. Y'all going to be taking the responsibility and making sure stuff happens here within the next few years. I said, your culture provides for you. Your job is to protect the culture. And that's what Malcolm learned in the Nation of Islam. He protected that culture. So when people came for Elijah Muhammad's head, who was there? You know what I'm saying? Boom, you're going to take it. Let me hear. I'm going to give you your head on the platter. Because I'm servicing my nation and you're attacking the leader of my nation. So boom, you want to serve it up to me, I'll serve it back up to you. And he studied and he showed himself approved because he felt that he had to be of service to his nation. And in many of the training programs we have, we are learning to be of service to other people's nations and to other people's culture. Right now, when we throw our kids into these education institutions and we don't go in and monitor it, they're being trained to serve other people's culture. So, of course, the only way another culture can show you that they appreciate you is by giving you trinkets and giving you little dollars. That's it. That's it. And that's what we are allowing our children to be trained into. This is what our adults are being trained into, because back to my problem with what was going on here, because I kind of jumped over that. Let me go back. In Columbus, what I have witnessed is I have witnessed some of the most powerful individuals that I will put up against anybody, anywhere. But one of the issues that I had with the Rites of Passage Collective is that a lot of us started thinking that Rites of Passage was for children. It's not. It don't stop in the nation, and it should never stop for us. Eldership, the last initiation the first initiation you go through is birth. The last one is death. Transition, as we say in our community. And that's when you are moved up to another level where you are tasked with overseeing and taking care of those that came after you. Now, I don't know how they deal with that nation, but that's how we deal with ours, because we, once again, are in a generational war, and our enemy is not trying to destroy us outright, but now they're using long-term strategies that if we don't start understanding that this is a generational war and it ain't about my life, it's about those that are coming next. Because in the toast, one of the things I discovered when I was doing the toast is that in the present, when we toast the present, we are solidifying a pact that we had with our ancestors, to never forget them, to always remember and go through our personal Rolodexes of our interactions with our elders, and to look at the wisdom that they have given us and use it in the present moment to make our lives better, not just for us, but for those that are coming. Because if we don't make and establish a foundation for those children to stand upon, we are violating the very rules of our very existence. When I start living my life for me, like we've been taught, many of us came through and we was told, you're supposed to live your life for you.
Yeah.
You're supposed to get it for you. When I live my life for me, I have failed my culture. I have in a sense committed treason against my people. My pocket getting hot. Oh, my phone is, oh my God. Yeah, excuse me. I got to.
So,
Go ahead, man. Go on, take it.
we're violating the code of conduct.
The code of conduct
that we have just, in many ways, just utterly let go. And so, when we start to, in many respects, repair ourselves, we have to reestablish that code of conduct. In as much as I'm a math individual, I'd ask you to bear with me. So when I'm teaching young children about, the simplest aspect of doing any arithmetic operation with fractions, I tell them, okay, so when we multiply fractions, I ask them what the rule is. And, most children who work with me, they understand, well, the rule is we multiply the numerators to get the new numerator. We multiply the denominators to get the new denominator. They understand that that's the simplest arithmetic operation with fractions. So I teach them the rules of the game. Now, when the rules of the game are violated, then, of course, we have to walk them back through it so they can see where to correct it. Now, here's the interesting thing about multiplying fractions or doing any arithmetic operation with fractions. Many of you will recall where you do a problem with a fraction, and at the end of the fraction, the teacher will say, it's supposed to be in, reduced form, lowest terms. And so, that's the other aspect of what we can learn out of such a kind of code of conduct, and that is, okay, once I give the child the understanding of how to do the arithmetic operation, I just let them do the arithmetic operation. But the more fine-tuned their understanding becomes of what we're actually doing, then they'll be able to reduce or put the answer in its reduced form even before they get to the final answer. And so, again, there may be a lot of rules to our code of conduct, but what we become tasked with is reducing it to its lowest form.
Simplest.
Yes, to its simplest underlying mechanisms. You ready to talk again?
I have a
Go ahead.
question.
Yes.
You're killing me, man.
I'm gonna make you do what you like to do.
You're going to make them talk. One of the things I got from your presentation the last time, and I wrote a couple of questions on, was on this randomness of Malcolm's and Marcus and their creation. But then today, I think you clarified it better by saying we don't understand their process.
You don't understand it.
Right, because I was thinking that it was, I was hearing last time, because I have written down, I was hearing the last time you were saying it was in a random event, but it really wasn't a whole, and you clarified that today, for me anyway, that there was a process that they went through. They didn't just become a Malcolm.
Right.
And the other thing along those lines, I think for each one of us sitting around the table, because we are around this table, there was a process that we went through that got us to here that I sometimes don't always think we value.
Or realize that.
Yeah.
Or even understand.
Or understand, because they're really, and I'll say this because I was so proud of myself when everybody knows I do my dance thing. And there's a young lady that is at the mall, you guys' mall, and I'm sorry I can't think her name, but she has a whole bunch of kids, real petite young woman, real nice, real petite. She always had one baby with her. And
the Yanni Spa? Avon?
yes, and she sells
Aisha. Yeah.
Yes. Well, one of her children dances with us. She's a little girl. You know how kids are little.
Oh, that might not be her. That ain't her.
She's a petite little lady. She's on the side where Destiny is. She's always near where CeeLo sells, but she's right over there. But anyway, her little girl dances with us. And when we do, for our master thing, I'm getting to it. For our master thing, we warm up all together, adults to the senior Ds and the little bitty babies. So she's one of the little ones. And she's just there, just carrying on. And China's saying, stand still, be quiet. And I tap her. I said, and she looks at me. I said, I know your mother. And she doesn't want you to behave like this. And she stopped. I said, yeah, I know your mother. And then I saw her mother yesterday, and I said, I tapped your little girl. She said, that is exactly what I want you to do.
Exactly.
As an elder. Because I can remember as a little girl, people saying, one of them Wimbush girls, what you doing here? So that's the process we all go through that I think is important for us, especially those of us who are elders, to remember you have a responsibility and you don't know where it's going to present itself. Because from a little girl, they told me, no, you ain't supposed to do this, and there's supposed to be people that check you, and you're supposed to, if you see an older person, you're supposed to help them, blah, 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 blah. So we all go through that. And that's the part that I think sometimes we're missing, because right now we're afraid to tell our children anything.
Or we're afraid to tell others'
Other
children.
children,
Now, because a lot of us, we will check our children, and I'll get into that in a second, because I got examples from the continent for how families work. That was how our families work. But as Homeboy said in his talk yesterday, when you catch it, between the 50s, between the late 60s, early 70s, something changed. And we have to be able to, we have to analyze that. We have to be able to break it down so that we could fix it. Now, my last time I spoke, because I often contradict myself. I'm not scared of contradictions. But the reason I said fighting the randomness is because I want us to take seriously the production of the people that we need, rather than relying on a random process. Because the process that Malcolm went through was very particular in developing him. But Malcolm being able to make it through the gauntlet he had to run and become Malcolm X was a rare event. Not because of Malcolm, but because of what we have set up within our community and what is set up against us. And what I'm saying is, if we refine the science a Malcolm X will be low on the totem pole for what we can develop. You understand what I'm saying? Malcolm is a beginning phase, should be a beginning phase for us. We should be able by this time to produce almost every young person into a Malcolm. Now, what's the next level? If we allow it to stay random, then we always gonna have to wait for a Malcolm. We're gonna have to wait for a Christ. But our people never waited for those things. Our people created that. When you was a child and you was born, from the moment you was born, they was looking to see which ancestor had returned and find out why you came. So they had processes of being able to select whether they was throwing shells or whether they was looking at the day that you was born on. You were identified and marked for what you were supposed to be doing in your life. And then when you went through the process, either you made it or you didn't.
And quick comment. So when we talk about randomness, if something is truly random in theory, then for every one from Hilda to Earl to Wilfred, Filbert, Ella to Malcolm to Reginald to who else they had? They had Wesley, Robert, Yvonne. All those are Malcolm and his siblings. If it were truly random, then there would have been an equally likely chance that any one of them could have been a Malcolm. And you look at a few of them and you say, okay, I see the potential, but you look at the others and you just saw that no, it just wasn't likely to happen. And so that's the distinction between a process that's not understood and what is truly random. We're talking about equally likely chances. But that was not the case. And as Brother ha2tim is pointing out, in the case that we take possession of what's going on, then for all 10 of those children, there would have been an equally likely chance that all of them would come about. In other words, from Hilda to the youngest one, Yvonne, or from the oldest one, Hilda, to the youngest one, Yvonne, would have been like a Malcolm.
Could we say that not only should he be the exception, that should be what we expect?
That's the norm.
That's the norm. That's what we had the ability to create. That's what we have. What I'm saying is, fighting the process of randomness, we have the ability, we have the science that has been passed down to us from our ancestors to make that the norm. Now, another piece that we have to take into account, and I was thinking about this, that when we look at the story of Asar, taking it all the way back to ancient Kemet, Set was, for a lot of us, a bad guy. But y'all do realize that Set had his own cult.
Yes.
Set was basically what we did, rather than saying, I'm going to condemn your religion, I'm going to bring y'all into the fold. They brought Set into the fold, and Set had his own followers. Set had his own temples, right? Now, so they mashed all of these different concepts together. So we had a battle between Set and Asar. A lot of people don't really understand that. That's the balance piece, because we, like, for example, I was on Kahari's show the other day, and I said some controversial things.
Oh, you heard him.
But they picked up on it though, didn't they?
Well, not
At the end, they understood.
No, because y'all, you see, I should have had my stuff on so we could catch the conversation in between the conversation, because it's almost like my family has given me, and I'm talking about this family, has given me a certain arrogance, and I try to fight it back, because I'm at a point now. being 51. It's like, you don't know enough to really shut up. You know what I'm saying? And family, I mean, we are going to have to develop that. I can't even talk to you because it's like one of the sisters on there was talking, and I mean, where did he find you? Why are you here? You know what I'm saying? Why are you here? As the Navita say, you're talking because you got lips. That's the only, shut up. You know what I'm saying? And we have to start being bold enough to start not only telling our people, but telling all, you don't know, you're not qualified enough to even talk in this conversation. Shut up. You all right? Yeah. Now, going back to that conversation, I can't remember where I was going. Oh man, but
you were talking about, you were on the Kahari show bringing up controversy.
I saw
it set. And I'm listening. And one of the things that popped up from one of the sisters, and I was there and I understand, was thinking our way out of this situation. I'm going to positive think white supremacy away. You know what I'm saying? I'm on positive think the racial wealth gap, the gap for us. I ain't going to say racial, but the wealth gap that is there for. I'm going to think it away, and we have to get out of that mind state because our ancestors have basically laid down a foundation. Now I was going towards women. So let me say this: one of the major things that I noticed, and because he brought up all of Malcolm's people, in Malcolm's family, there may have been, as a matter of fact, he illustrated for us somebody that was more powerful than Malcolm X. But because they weren't out front talking.
His older brother Wilfred ran the mosque in Detroit, the very mosque that Elijah Muhammad would come to visit when he was in Detroit. And that's where, of course, Malcolm, came to revere Elijah Muhammad so much. And so,
how about the older sister? I think her name is Hilda.
Hilda. Mm-hmm.
Because if not for Hilda, he wouldn't have never made it to Boston.
No, Ella.
You know what I'm saying?
Hilda was the older sister, but Elder was
the one that who took care of her.
Ella was in Boston, yeah.
Because oftentimes we overlook people's roles. Like, for example, we talk about Martin Luther King, but we don't never look at the structure that really supported Martin Luther King, which was a whole bunch of sisters that was making shit happen. Excuse me. And then also you look at the Black Panther Party. We get to look at all of those brothers that got to get out there and speak. But who made the arrangements so that they could speak? Who let the press know that there was it's a whole bunch of stuff. There's a whole mechanism that are up under these people that a lot of times we don't look at.
Marcus Garvey.
Marcus, think about it. We don't really think about that. And I'm going back to Kemet with this. Check this out. Set was cool with the whole thing, the way things was running, all the way until Assar decided he was going to go out and civilize the world. When he went out to civilize the world, Set being the brother, like, I'm about to give me Kemet. I'm the next in line so that when he leaves, I get to do it. Aset turned around. Assar turned around and gave it to Aset, and that pissed Set off. And Set did everything in his power to mess her up. But while Assar was gone, she ran it better than he did. We don't talk about that. She ran it. As a matter of fact, the only reason that Assar probably got caught in the way he got caught was because he took leadership when he came back. Let's think about it. I'm just saying. So it's oftentimes the people that like to talk, as Kwame say, is the one that people see. But it's the people that support those that do the talking because they allow. You know what I'm saying? I said allowed Assar to shine. She made it possible for him to shine, and everybody that was up under him in his personal pyramid allowed him to do that. And Malcolm had one of those too. And what I'm saying is we have to be more intentional about our creation of these individuals and understand that everybody's not going to be thrust up into that spotlight. Only some are going to be able to do that. You know what I'm saying? And you know, so I just wanted to cover that. But you know, like I said, I just want the process. I want us to take command of the process as our ancestors did. This is the reason for the day names. Because you go all throughout West Africa, people you be like, why is there so many people with the same name? Because at their birth, they looked at when they was born, and they gave them that name. And if you look at the definition of those names and where those names really come from, because if you look on the internet, they will trace it back to the Bible, which is another conundrum for me that I'm just like, oh my God. But anyway, you look at those day names, it identifies certain characteristics that are common with each individual that's born on that day. And because I know that you are a Kwame, it is certain inclinations that you will have that I know as an elder, and we know as a community that if we give you opportunity, if we push you in a certain direction, certain things will happen, and you will be able to rise to the top of your craft. You will be able to arrive at a point of mastery that will not only service you and your immediate family, but it will benefit everybody in the collective. And that's what we have to perfect, and that's what we have to start moving forward
Hold on
with.
for a moment, bro.
Just a question.
I'm sorry.
This has been going. Would you say that? I know process. I recognize. But could you just connect that with it's really being building blocks to get to the finished?
Yes, ma'am.
Product? Okay.
One of the things that we talk about in Gye-Nyame journey, because I did this because after communicating with Kwame, I got away from the concept of family trees, because the family tree is, how can I put it? With the family tree, it goes from you down. Start talking about a family pyramid, and all those individuals that are blocks that you stand upon. Right now, all of us are at the top of our family pyramids, unless we have children. Then we become a foundational block, or that's added that they stand upon. When I'm pouring libations, one of the things I tell,
you become almost like you become a point of both pivot and reflection. What I mean by that is, if you imagine a triangle, and then underneath, so if you imagine a triangle like that, right? And then you imagine another one sharing the same vertex or the point, going down that way. The point is you. Your ancestors are up. You and your children go down.
Or the way I'm doing, I flip it upside down. The ancestors are going down. You are going up.
But even the tree, the roots,
Go down. Go down.
they,
Right. I like the pyramid. I'm just saying.
well, that's okay. It's still, the roots
Same-
are roots.
Yes.
Right.
Thing, yeah.
Which
You have the
means
base,
that
you have the apex.
we become the foundation upon which our children
Stand.
build, and not only stand but build their
Yes.
their pyramids.
And out.
So it's continuous.
A continuous piece. And it's like we, being in the present, have a pact with our ancestors and a pact with our children, because if we're not doing what we're supposed to do in the moment, our children will not have anything to build upon, which expands it beyond you, which a culture is supposed to do. A culture is supposed to make you, as one of my elders told me, he's an elder now. He said, and I always go back to this, one of our Native American brothers. He said, Brother ha2tim, you are no lower than a blade of grass. Well, you are no lower than, he said, we're like a blade of grass. You're no higher than a blade of grass and no lower than its roots. And we understand that. It's like, because at the same time, we're absolutely nothing. But in the total opposite of that, in the paradox of the universe, you are everything at the exact same time. And in this moment, we have an opportunity to lay a foundation so that our children can move on. But we only could do that if we realize that we are, in a sense, the fertilizer out of which our children grow.
Now, see, I'm gonna have to argue with my brother here.
Go
Because,
ahead.
see, like he said, he talks in sometimes he'll talk in contradictions. And even though we understand the spirit of his contradiction, I'm just going to make it plain and make it more correct. So what he is saying is that as individuals, we are seemingly nothing. Because absolutely nothing is not even anything you can conceive of. That's a Banachi.
Yes, I got it.
It's something, that's something you can't even conceive.
I know. Yes, I got
Absolutely nothing. And so, and it's one of the things I often have to correct my Christian brothers and sisters on when I sit amongst them, in Sunday school or something, because they like to use that phrase too in relation to what exactly their relationship is to the individual they refer to as God. They say, we are absolutely nothing. And I have to stop them. I was saying, look, if you're absolutely nothing, you wouldn't be at all. So there's no sense in even speaking on anything else you have to say. Nothing else makes sense after that. Or hell, everything makes sense after that, But the point being is that nothing is, it's no thing we can conceive. But the point, of course, the spirit of what he's saying is true, and that is that we should not think so much of ourselves as to think we're the all, but not think so less of ourselves to think that we are meaningless. Take it away, bro.
I have another question.
Troublemaker. I can't stand these goddamn mathematicians. Boy.
Two things I wrote down I wanted you to speak on again. One was being called. You talked about that. And the other one was the transformation and never giving up on you, your people, or whatever. Because if you look at Malcolm's life, there was this transformation that occurred. And I was thinking about, I wrote down at that time, both Elder Renee and Elder J. Elder J being my husband, that he is about to get his GED, which is at his age a transform. I mean, that's a transformation. And then I think about Jay, who had followed a similar path and dropped out of high school when he came out of Vietnam and said, okay, I'm ready to go to college now. And they said, well, you don't even have a high school diploma. Okay, well, what do I have to do? He said, to take the test, the GED. He took it, he passed it. Now can I go to college? Yeah, but I'm saying these are two examples of two men that we are with, who we've been with in our everyday lives that have done transformations. Just like Malcolm, not out, like Malcolm, but transformations is something that we have to constantly, I think about in our community.
And celebrate.
And celebrate these transformations, because people can go through them, and you don't give up, although sometimes you just want to. And then you spoke on the calling. You talked about both of those things.
Which one you want?
Within the
first?
context,
Either way.
within the context of her question, think about what binds Gye-Nyame together. The loyalty.
Honor, loyalty, and sacrifice.
The honor, loyalty, and sacrifice. Speak.
Honor, loyalty, and sacrifice. So now, transformation. Transformation is when one thing is taken from one
state,
is moved from one state to another state, and all of us went through transformations. Because I know everybody here can remember when you start changing from that young person to that adult physically, and you can remember that pain that was caused when you went from that young person mentally to that older person as an adult. We all go through transformations, but one of the things that our ancestors did was they were able to, now I ain't gonna say predict, but they were able to guide the transformation so that we could celebrate them together. That's what festivals was for. This is what festivals are, to celebrate forms of transformation.
We often refer to it as a controlled traumatic experience. A controlled traumatic experience.
Purposeful suffering. When you think about initiation prepares you for life. Transformations, if it's not painful, if there's not sacrifice, if there's not suffering, it's not a transformation.
Doesn't work.
It's not a transformation, and we got to realize this. And we've been because we want it to be easy. We want it all positive. You know what I'm saying? We know that like for example, the way Brother ha2tim orchestrates organization. How many meetings we had before the Malcolm X Festival? It's like we have meetings and boom. All right, make it happen. All right, boom, we're going to boom, make it happen. All right, boom. And listen, don't make me. All right, because I believe that I always know that shit's going to happen. So regardless of whether I'm meeting with you every week, every day, every hour, when we hit the action point, something's going to go wrong. You know what I'm saying? So I know I'm going to have to be ready. All right, cool. All right, boom. I'm already prepared. So people will get mad at me when we organize it because I'm laying back. I'm like, oh,
look,
cool.
Man, I thought Mama Margarita turned into Mary Poppins, man. She started flying away with the umbrella and stuff. You ain't throwing that.
All the planning we was doing. We went out and bought brand new tents. And within 10 minutes, the tents was broke. I could have been sitting right there screaming in the middle of the festival. I told him, I said, all right, Warriors, I want this thing broken down by the time I come back. We had this big white tent. Two of the legs was fell off, and it was leaning to the back. We put weights on it. It's still going away.
Scarecrow.
I come back
over there. The other one over there.
Right. I come back, and they just got the frame, and people sitting in the frame looking like they're in the guts of a whale. I'm like, what in the hell is, you know what I'm saying? So I could go have a meltdown, but I already knew that regardless of what we plan for, something's going to happen because it's initiation. Like, for example, its initiation is a transformation because at that moment, a realization came. All right, boom, now I got to start getting these boys and these young ladies ready so that they understand your role. And when we're doing events, it's A, B, C, and D. Let's start working on that. I can't get mad about that because we never did a festival on May 25th, 2019. And we haven't done the festival on May 25th, 2020 yet. You know what I'm saying? We haven't done a Kwanzaa 2020 yet. I don't know what's going to happen, but I know I have to have my mind open up enough and be like, boom, all right, boom, boom. But this is what purposeful suffering, what you call it, a controlled traumatic experience prepare you for.
Which is the growth.
Exactly. By you actually being put through that in on purpose fashion, it prepares you for whatever life is going to bring you.
The rites of passage classes prepare you for that.
Right.
You're supposed to be expected to understand that during that time, you will be able to handle those situations.
And you have to be able to not only intellectually know it, but physically be pushed, physically and mentally being put through it so that when it happens, it's like, oh, man.
Mama Margarita was
I'm sorry.
bringing up something that happened at one of the ones that I took them through. So,
It's sort of like what James Small says, when we came in contact with the European, we were coming from a spiritual, and they were coming from a bullet, and like what we have to do, we have to start, what you're saying, preparing, spiritual is great, that's who we are, but we have to also know who we're fighting and learn different tactics, with our spirituality, and we have some bullets too.
Oh, yeah.
But what I say is that until you get a correct understanding of spirituality, then all of that will come into fruition anyway. But as long as one is thinking that spirit is immaterial and simply immaterial, they don't understand what spirituality is.
you transform in the transformation.
That's right.
You actually become.
That's
Spirituality is about relationships.
Right. That's it.
Simple and plain. We we went into a relationship with Europeans, expecting them to be just like us. And we still expect them to be just like us. Because all humans are the same, are they not?
Well, we want to be like them.
Yep.
Now we want to be like
We
them.
want to be like them, right?
You know what I'm saying? But we going into the relationship not really understanding who we are. And we all know what happens when you jump in a relationship and you don't know who you are.
That's right.
Where you going?
You know what I'm saying? You end up getting pimped.
Get what?
End up getting pimped. If you go in a relationship and you don't know who you are, they're going to use you up
And spit you out.
and spit you out.
But send you in a direction to convince others.
Right. So, you know,
Right.
so that purposeful suffering, so that is that whole in that transformation piece. So Malcolm went through unstructured transformations, but the one that we have been able to receive something from as a community is the one that was in a sense a purposeful transformation from Malcolm Little to Malcolm X. Now, that Malcolm X period is the one that most of us was affected by. Most of us were not affected by the El Hajj Malik Shabazz transformation. You know what I'm saying? So this is why we call our festival the Malcolm X Festival, because it was the Malcolm X aspect of his journey that affected most of us. You know what I'm saying? A lot of us are not even familiar with what he did after he became El Hajj Malik El Shabazz.
He had just had his call to El Hajj Malik El Shabazz. He didn't, get to live any of that experience out.
So there we have it. You know what I'm saying? So this is why we don't call the festival that. We call the festival with that part of him that we experienced, that young in between. Well, he was probably a nation builder phase, the whole nation building phase, right? He didn't even get into the nation maintaining piece and the eldership piece, but we recognize where he was. So we spoke about the transformation. Transformation is supposed to be painful, and I ain't gonna just say painful, but it's trying.
It's good. Painful's good.
Okay, but our ancestors had a way of cementing it and making it part of the culture and making it purposeful. And I seen this when I went to the Sundance, and I tell you about this all the time, where you see people suffering on purpose. It's crazy. Some of the stuff is crazy, and I'm like, damn. You know what I'm saying? And then you get, and I had the opportunity to go into the center of that energy that was being produced, because they had a giant circle where they was doing the Sundance, and they danced around the circle all day. And on the edge of the circles, you had people who were actually, in a sense, crucifying themselves during the process. So you had people who would stay, they call ego dancers. The ego dancers would dance on the head of a buffalo and have to stay on the head of the buffalo at the same time being pierced to a personal pole that they had, and they would stay out there the whole dance. The dance is 3 days long. So those that were just plain dancers would get to go home after dancing all day in the heat and go home and eat and get to go around everybody and chill. But the ego dancers would still be there suffering. So after 3 days, you go inside of there, you can't do nothing but feel the energy that's coming out here, because they be like, we're doing this for the world. We're doing this for the world. What does Christianity say about Jesus being crucified? Who was he crucified for? You know what I'm saying? They say the world. You know what I'm saying? But we got to refine our understanding of the world. And once we refine that, we're going to be cool. Because, the world includes yours first. It works from the inside out. What we're
Charity starts at home.
Right. We're trying to do the spirituality from out there and then bring it all the way back. No, we got to start from here and allow it to project out so that people can benefit from our gifts if we have extra.
Right.
No, that's for real, though.
You know what I'm saying?
For real.
But then you said transformation
And the call.
The call. Now, the call is an important piece, because this is the part where, in some form or fashion, somebody hears the call from the universe, and this is where one of the pieces where we have to really refine, because how can I put it? That's a random event where somebody has to be awake enough to hear a call from the ancestors. As a group, we have to start putting out a call to all of those who are ready for this moment. Now, Elijah Muhammad did it by starting Muhammad Speaks, and now it's called the Final Call paper. That's a call. They got people out all the time. Final call. Uh-oh. Them papers, they're putting out the information. So the call is something that lets you know, uh-oh, there's an adventure over here. And there's two type of responses to the call. It's the Heru respond to the call, where I'm going to take the call and I'm going to do it. And then there's the Jonah type, where I'm not going to do the call, but the universe is going to make you end up taking the call. You know what I'm saying? So you have the reluctant person that responds, or the person that's trying to deny the call but ends up going on the journey. Then you have the ones that go headlong into it. In our culture, we strove to make sure, because we made the call so loud that the young people couldn't resist it. You want to be a man, like for example Shaka Zulu. You couldn't be until you went to war. You weren't allowed to talk to no women. They had a separate care for you. You can't partake in the carriers of our culture until you show that you got skin in the game as being a Zulu.
That's right. Code of conduct.
So the call brings you into being able to go and move into your process, which never ends, because right after you come and are reintroduced to the society, you get comfortable, and eventually another call comes. So from the warrior state, you're called into the nation builder state. From the nation builder state, you're called into the elder state. From the elder state, you're called into the ancestors. Now, I don't know nothing about the initiation after the ancestor phase. Some of y'all, when we get over there, we can talk about it. Right. But you
get the call.
You get the call. When you get the call, you go. You know what I'm saying? But like I said, but part of our process now is that with the daily toast, and we're bringing up other people that's going to be able to carry on the daily toast, what we're doing is we're plugging into a resource now that we have, in a sense, almost been neglecting for a long time, calling on our personal ancestors, remembering them, and calling and bringing that energy and making that energy present in our lives so that we can move forward, so we always can remember. You know what I'm saying? I'm where I'm at now because my grandparents sacrificed for me, not because I did something, not just because of the work that I did, because I did do something, but it was if my grandparents wouldn't have been there for me, where would I be? If Tony Clark didn't see something special in me, where would I be? So I'm a heathen if I allow the memory of those individuals in my life, and especially for my children, to be forgotten. And all of us got people in our lives like that we just overlook. And we can see it, especially with our young people. Our young people, somebody will be killed, murdered, whatever. They'll wear the t-shirt for 2 weeks, and then after that person is totally forgotten. And hell for Africans, hell for our people is being forgotten. And we should never allow our ancestors to ever be forgotten. I'm sorry, did I cover it?
Yes, you did. Those were all my notes that I had written down. Questions I had.
Any quote unquote random questions?
Okay, I think. I'm sorry. About yesterday about the music. I'm still the speaker. The music and our changes to music.
You said you missed it or you enjoyed it?
No, she enjoyed it.
No. This is my interpreter. Can you translate for me, please?
So, as regards to music and the changes that the music had gone through, he spoke to during the 50s to the late 60s, there was a conscious effort with the music such that it was in lockstep with our political, social, economic thinking. Now, once you got beyond that mid-70s period, and hell, some might even say it took off with the that black sexploitation filming, in the early 70s and whatnot, that took off, where things started to get disjointed. Yes. And then, of course, it got into the mid 80s, roughly, maybe early to mid 80s, where it began to become in lockstep again. And of course, because there was the understanding by the music conglomerates that what happened in the 50s and early 60s, that they didn't want that to happen again. So they took off all the conscious music from the radios and just started putting on the gangster shit. Excuse my language, but that's about what it amounts to. And so that kind of killed those things coming in lockstep again, so that it would have the power that it had back in the 50s, 60s, as such. And so we're trying to basically find a way of controlling our own. Well, I'd be remiss, because when we speak of the likes of Mark Lomax, who could be getting paid, and we wouldn't have a random chance in hell of getting him to come to a Malcolm X festival to speak to us, let alone play to us, and Eddie Baird, because these brothers have tried to remain true to who they are, to who the ancestors and their parents would have wanted them to be. That's why they could come and celebrate with us Malcolm X. And so, did I cover it, Mama?
Yes, sir. You did an excellent job. I want to pay you to be my interpreter.
And Elder Eunice had a comment also.
Yes, ma'am.
I was thinking, when you were saying something about your son, Cleve, maybe this is part of his transformation going through, breaking that bond with the European mentality of, I got to get paid for whatever I do. Why should I be responsible for the whole group when I'm not getting something? And a lot of times, like, you might give of yourself and you more back from the community. So, maybe it might come back maybe as far as like somebody could come and say, I have a scholarship for that aqua farm that you were doing, and it can come back in different ways. So being able to recognize when the gifts come instead of, it has to be in dollars.
We have to teach them how to see it. Like, one of the things that whether you know it or not, I was kind of disappointed because he left, but when you was at the graduation and you was going to give him something.
Oh, I didn't tell you about his first attitude when I gave him $2. When I pulled out, I said, "Oh," he said he graduated. I said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, I have something." I looked in my purse and I only had $2. And when I pulled the $2 out, he backed up. I said, "Never, refuse any amount of money that is given." I said, "But I'm gonna tell you this: when you see me the next time, just come up and say, Elder Eunice, Elder, remember the promise." Because I said I was going to give him some more. And so, he was a little, more pleased with that, But the
you just got his ass whooped.
No.
Control trauma. You introduced him to control trauma.
Yeah, but like the $2, he was kind of like,
right.
And I said, well, never refuse, no matter the amount. And so when I gave the money, when you told me that the little girl had graduated, I had the $20, which I was going to give to him, but he would have got the whole 20. Mm-hmm. But when you said that she had graduated, I said, well, we'll give half. Well, she didn't understand. She get 10, and Cleve get 10. Mm-hmm. She didn't. She had a whole 20. So we had to break it down. And so yesterday, when I saw the other girl, I told her, I said, well, because you didn't graduate, I'm not going to give you the same amount. So I gave her 5. She was happy.
Wait, hold on.
always happy.
I ain't going on here. I was wondering why Sasha woke up this one tomorrow. I gotta go.
I didn't mean that was going to
I'll go.
Amen.
I'm sorry about my voice. Okay, it's quarter till, in fact, it's 20:46, and I wanted to keep us so that we will be out of here at 12. So I just wanted to let you know what the time is so we can respect those people that have to leave here, especially Mama Lona, who has to lock the building up. So I'm just letting you know the time.
Yes,
Thank you.
Don't be beating up on kids.
Y'all
Please
be
do.
in discussion.
Because
You
they
don't will.
graduated. That's the reason why.
So
I understand, but I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say I'm sorry I missed you guys' presentation, but in listening to you, I wondered if you have come up with a solution or a possible recommendation on how we can do the things you said we need to be doing with our kids, especially through a rites of passage program. You know, during our community thing, we talked about putting rites of passage back in there, and there was a nation builder who was in charge. They don't want to do the work. Yeah. When they came to me, I laid out a plan of what you need to do in order for us to get started. And they thought that I was going to do it all. And I said, no, part of this training will be you understanding what needs to be done so that you can do it when I leave. And when they were like, oh, and that's the last I heard from them was, oh. So how do we move beyond that, given the talent that we have and the experience that, we know what needs to be done because we've done it. Right. So how do we do it? I don't know, maybe we need to jump start it. And maybe they'll jump in and start helping them.
Well, the word was we.
Meaning?
How do you do it? How do we do it? We do it with them.
But we have tried to do it with them. They only want to do it if you're doing the work.
We have to do it together.
Yeah.
We do.
Well,
I agree with that.
It's happening.
And responsibility, like he said.
And your end is happening.
You do this, you do that, you do this, and then come back and tell me what
your
you've done.
group.
My group is your group.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, understand.
They don't understand.
Right. Understand that everything that's happening with Gye-Nyame is part of a process that started with Dr. Kelsey
I understand.
and Noma. You understand what I'm saying? So now we may look like we are over here, but one of the things I need the family to understand is that we're still here. Right. Gye-Nyame is part of this.
Right.
We call it this thing of ours. This thing of ours. This belongs to us. So my young people are your young people. So Elder Eunice teaches in her way. When you see my children, you do it in a certain way, and then they'll start recognizing y'all. Not only my blood children, but all of the children that we are doing it, because it's like when we
for a second.
Go ahead,
Mama Lona. Ket in 10.
That's it right there.
Ket in 10.
Okay.
Glyphs.
This thing of ours.
Yes.
Or this our thing.
Yeah.
You know what
That's
I'm
how you say it.
Yes.
Say it.
Cat
in
10.
10. Cat in 10 means
Our thing.
This our thing. This is our thing.
This is our
Yeah.
thing.
And how do you spell cat in 10?
Cat, when you English wise, would be KATNTIN.
T-I-N. And this is our thing.
This is our thing.
Okay.
So Gye-Nyame is.
But you're gonna have to give her the meta-nature.
The glyphs.
Because the whole piece is, like I said, we partner. It ain't partnerships. It's like realizing where the family is, and just putting those that are already doing the work where they need to be. Give them assistance, because like I said, we doing the camps. Matter of fact, Simba wanted to do a Simba camp here this year. But they so far behind. It's crazy. It's like they just now, in a sense, reaching out to me because but they family. So boom, I'm going.
Have they identified the location and the date?
They got all that. I think they already paid for all that. But it's like, we're gonna make it happen. But yeah, it's happening. You don't have to pass it on to nobody else. You got us. because we got a team of nation builders that's already moving and working with the youth on a bi-weekly basis and working with ourselves on a bi-weekly basis. We just have to bring in the elders, because one of the reasons that I came back to Tawi is because far as the process that I want to finish is having a group of elders that the young people are able to go through when they make it through each phase, because we got ours broken down into like a belt system from initiate all the way up. I'm sorry.
I've got a comment from Mama Rita, and then we're going to close.
Yeah, I need a ride. I know.
Kwame, you need a ride?
Okay, you can give me a ride.
I'm going
Okay.
tomorrow.
You need a ride, right, Brother Kwame?
You're gonna see her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got you. Okay.
Thank you.
I forgot.
Thank you.
All right, so can we close Mama Lona, please?
Yes,
and
we can
gotta
close.
get you out of here.
Good conversation. Our last conversation was like this. Remember that, Phyllis? Spirituality. Yes, it was a good
Okay,
conversation.
I got to make a suggestion here. We're going to have to move out to the circle and take the table from amongst us, because this is a spiritual moment, so we don't want anything in between us.
We'll just move out and take that forward.
Right here. Yeah, that's good right there. We can do it right here. Come on out here.
Like there's a chair.
Come on back to the gate. Where you doing there?
Are we utilizing the men? Right.
We were talking about ritual here and how do we do our rituals, and one of the things that we do in our rituals is not have anything in between us when we're forming the circle. So that's why I requested that we move out here. Thank you very much. Could take our left foot and put it forward. This is our heart side. This is the side that says we understand that yes, we're going to be emotionally involved. And then that right foot is the one going, I don't know if I want to be involved with that stuff or not. So we have to wait until Spirit says it's time, and Spirit will bring it up. And we bring that right foot up. And you see what happened? We got what? Close. And now when we get closer to each other, that's our sign that we're going to work together as one. And Mama Lona, and thank you very much. And Brother Kwame and Brother ha2tim, thank you very much. And you did talk to those brothers very spiritual yesterday, and they listened. When the wind was up and they were holding down the tents, I watched the whole thing. It was beautiful. Mama Margarita is the eldest. Here, do you have anything final to say?
We work together, fight together.
And for our special guests, we definitely going to have to give y'all a hug before we leave, because it was a blessing.
Well, this was a blessing being here.
Mama Lona?
That's it.
All right. We're supposed to give them a hug.
Let's do it. Wake up. Oh, we got
Oh, here we go. Big hug. Big hug. Big hug. Now, wait a minute. You know what just happened?
We're leaving Tuesday.
What he was saying just happened.
Yes.
There was a feeling, and from the feeling, there was a sound. And that sound was a ritual, and then we had the movement. So all three is the hecasia and the whoop. Oh my God, that we just did it. And nobody planned it. Mama Lona, how do we get you out of here? Mama Jesus. 6 minutes till. 6 minutes till.
6 minutes. 6 minutes, make it fresh, strong.
Oh, you remember that? I'm going to get you in the car. 6 minutes, I got to get in the car.
And West Virginia, I've been there, yeah. I think about that all the time. And I have all.
I don't know. You thinking about something?
I know, that was such a beautiful.
Make it a good weekend.
Yes, you too.
Thank you.
You guys ready?
Yes.
Thank you for coming.
Oh, you're
yeah.
welcome. Thank you. Thank you for letting us sit in.
This was good. Good.
Thank you so much.
Oh yeah,
What
this
he
was
was talking about.
good.
All the planning.
You know what popped
Math
in my
person.
head? You know what it's saying?
I was a
No,
teacher.
you know what
I
they're
can
saying?
tell.
And a
Kids were
dancer.
planning on
Oh, I can
I
even
was back in
tell.
the time when we did African dances for class.
Okay.
We're talking about in the 50s.
Yes.
When we only know of Catherine Dunham and a few others.
Good.
Oh,
Oh,
I
good.
saw him.
Just been hanging. Oh, that's okay.
I think I saw him that way.
I'd like
We're
to
doing
come
it
up
next
with-
year.
Yeah.
You know.
But it's not. It hasn't always been this weekend.
It's always Memorial Day weekend.
Oh, well, we'll be here next year.
You guys are talking in the middle.
Have fun this weekend, Bill.
The bathroom time here.
I went just twice.
You did, just right. Because we have to get
I'm back, going back.
I'm going back.
All right, family. I want
It
to thank you
was
for
good
tuning in.
yesterday. I'm sorry I didn't stay for more.
That was good. I left after.
So I'm gonna go and break a leg.
Yes, I will.
You know that?
I wanted to stay until 8 o'clock.
What time is your program?
3.
My ride.
Good luck again. You were great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Just smiling back there.
All right. Talita lost her keys. That's why I never.
I was in there.
How were
She
you?
got them last night.
I didn't realize she was even there.
Yeah. We came.